Return of the Mount Hua Sect, Chapter 224. How come you don't know that? I drank too much. Jogul lifted his head and looked up at the sky. It was late into the night, so the sun would soon rise. The feast hosted by the Beast Palace Lord went on until late in the morning. To be precise, it was the betting match between the Palace Lord and Chongmyung that extended until dawn. Who won? How can I even know? Unwilling to drink any more, the rest of the disciples left the two of them and went back to their rooms. The disciples of Mount Hua decided to unpack their luggage in the rooms assigned by the Beast Palace attendants who were leading their weary bodies. It would be better if he didn't wake me up till lunchtime. He must have had a lot to drink. After washing his face at the well and wiping it off, Jogul staggered to his room. Inside, Yoonjong was cleaning his bed and then proceeded to open the window and looked out the room. Won't you sleep, Sayoung? I will. Yoonjong turned away from Jogul after a light reply. Do you have any concerns? Rather than concerns, Yoonjong smiled. It was ridiculous to even ask if he had any concerns after coming all this way to Yunnan and entering the Nanman Beast Palace. No matter how much they were welcomed, this was a place where they couldn't relax. However, Yoonjong knew why Jogul was asking him this question. Girl. Yes, Sayoung. I'm sorry. It is because of me. What are you talking about? Sayoung. Jogul was shocked. Aren't we past all that? The things we went through before. Everyone would have died because of me. Yoonjong's face went stiff. If something had really gone wrong, Chongmyung would have solved it. That's the problem. Huh? Yoonjong shook his head. Because Chongmyung was there, we got out of that situation. We might have thought it all worked out. We should be of help to him, not a burden. But in the end, I became a burden, right? Sayoung. I was stupid. I will never do that again. I'm sorry. No, Sayoung. Jogul sighed. His heart knew that no matter what he said, Yoonjong wouldn't feel right. But why did you do that? It was my first time seeing Sayoung like that. Yoonjong bit his lip. He looked like he was deeply thinking about something and took a deep breath. Did you know that I was an orphan? Yeah, I heard about it. Then you know I was a beggar, right? Huh? Jogul was shocked. Yoonjong looked at him and calmly continued. Since I could remember, it had been just my mother and me. I had no relatives or acquaintances, so after my mother died, I had no choice but to become a beggar. Sayoung. It's still pretty vivid to me. On that cold winter day when I was dying on the street with no one to help me. What is funnier was that at that time, I suffered more from hunger than the cold. I hadn't eaten for more than 10 days, so I would have even killed people for food. If it wasn't for me being a kid, I would have turned into a thief or maybe even a murderer. Jogul went silent. This was his first time hearing about Yoonjong's past. And it was his first time listening to Yoonjong speak this freely instead of following the duty of a Sayoung. If the elder passing by hadn't saved me, I would have died on that road. Mount Hua is my benefactor. I was raised from a young beggar who is dying on the street to the man I am today by Mount Hua. Yoonjong shut his eyes. It was unclear whether he was trying to remember the past or organize his thoughts. Jogul didn't interfere and waited for Yoonjong to speak. Since then, whenever I see people starving, it reminds me of my past. Maybe it's because I know how hard and painful it is. I cannot help myself. The feeling of pain from the hunger that threatens to kill you. I understand, Sayoung. You understand? Yes, Sayoung. You understand, even if my actions brought you so close to death. Would you have been able to tell me that you understand if we had met after our deaths? Sayoung. Yoonjong spoke firmly. It was a stupid thing to do, helping people who I knew nothing about, especially when the safety of my Sasuks and Sages was dependent on me. There was deep regret on Yoonjong's face. Because of him, things had gone wrong, and he felt that he couldn't face them at all. Yunjong licked his lips. As soon as I get back to Mount Hua, I will ask the elders to punish me. I will get back the Plum Blossom sword again. But what excuses can I make after what I have done? Jogul heard the man speak with a dreadful voice and waved his hand. Sayong, even if I didn't know what you were talking about, I'm sure they wouldn't punish you for selling the sword. Why? Well, the Plum Blossom sword is the sword of Mount Hua, but it isn't a holy object of Mount Hua. Jogul cleared his voice. If Chongmyung heard you, he would have said something like this. What? Punishment? Depressed? If you think the sword is a holy thing, then the robes with the plum blossom should be holy things too, right? If we put plum blossoms on an alcohol bottle, would that be a holy thing as well? Jogul looked at Yunjong and smiled. None of those things matter. What is important is how Sayong thinks about Mount Hua. Yunjong smiled bitterly. It wasn't because he was convinced by Jogul's words, but because he understood what he was trying to say. Wouldn't Chongmyung say that? It isn't about us making mistakes, but our ability to learn from them. And hasn't Sayong learned anything? Yes, I've learned. Then it all worked out, right? Yunjong sighed and closed his eyes. Are you okay? Open your eyes. Elder. He remembered the sight of Hyunsang holding him. He remembered the warmth he felt. Sorry. Stop thinking about it and just sleep. There is a lot of work to do. Just think about finding the grass and returning back to Mount Hua. Right. Yunjong nodded his head. He lay on the bed, closed his eyes, and tried to sleep. But it wasn't easy. Suddenly, he heard a voice. Sayong. What Sayong did was wrong. Right. Still. I like Sayong because you're such a person. Sleep now. The room turned quiet. Yunjong shut his eyes tightly, but he couldn't sleep until the morning. Alive. Seems to be dead. No, he seems to be breathing. The disciples of Mount Hua gathered around Chongmyung and watched him sleep. Jogul stabbed him with a stick he had picked up earlier. Dead? Must have died. If he was alive after having this much, he wouldn't be human. There is a limit to how much food and alcohol a person's stomach can fit inside it. Does it make sense for a single person to eat and drink so much? I heard that the man was saving it for a wedding. Alcoholic. As Jogul stabbed Chongmyung again, he wobbled in his sleep. He is alive. He never follows the path of the Tao and even took the Palace Lord down with him. So, who won? It was then. A terrible groan came from the mouth of Chongmyung, who was lying face down. I won. Sleep. You did well. Right. Yes. You can die now that you've won. I'm not dead. Chongmyung got up very slowly and sat straight. Cold water. Our sect has to be top class. A sasuk offering a sajil water. Baekchun held out the cold water he had prepared in advance, and Chongmyung drank it without saying another word. Then he grabbed his head. My head. At this point, just burn away the toxins. You've done that before. If that's the case, then why drink alcohol? Right. You said the same thing before. A sigh escaped from Baekchun's mouth. There was no way he could scold this man when he was looking this gloomy. But you did a good job. The best way to build a friendship was through drinking, and the position of the Palace Lord was absolute in Yunnan. I don't know if he drank with that intention or if it was purely for the purpose of enjoying it. But, in any case, it is certain Chongmyung is now friends with the Palace Lord. It hurts! Chongmyung shook his head a couple of times, and a guard of the palace rushed inside. Are you awake? It was a completely different attitude from yesterday. The guard was polite and bowing to them. It was natural, now that they were guests who had been recognized by the Lord. Yes, the Lord is looking for you. What? Chongmyung asked. Already so alert. Weren't you drunk a moment ago? Baekchun's lips twitched. I think Chongmyung lost. It couldn't be. Loser. Baekchun smiled and followed the man. He had lived this long and could now witness Chongmyung lose. Life looked a little fun for Baekchun now. It cannot be. Baekchun's happy eyes changed in a fraction of a second when he saw the palace lord. Sitting in front of them in a giant chair and with a tiger skin draped around his body was the vigilant palace lord. No, he wasn't vigilant anymore. Ugh! How much did those two drink? The man looked like he would need the heavens themselves to come down and support him if he wanted to walk. His eyes looked dark and emotionless, and his cheeks looked like he had a disease that sucked them in. He groaned and managed to speak. Ugh, are you fine? I'm fine. Today too, I'll drink. Drink. The disciples of Mount Hua rushed to Chongmyung and covered his mouth. Don't puke, you idiot. Where do you think this is? Hold back. Bucket. Get us a bucket. The palace lord looked at that and smiled. Right. You cannot be fine after all that. Palace lord, you cannot puke again. Here. It was a mess. Unable to bear it any longer, one guard shouted, If you feel unwell, control your body. What? You idiot. If that is the case, why would I drink alcohol? Baekchun, who heard it, smiled. I feel like I've heard that somewhere. Am I mistaken? Has to be Sasuk. Both participants of the bet were struggling to even move. They wiped their lips as they looked up at each other. If this is the case, a draw. The match between the two last night had been settled because they had run out of alcohol. They decided that they would have to reach a conclusion the next day because neither of them wanted to lose to the other. That is great. You! The disciples of Mount Hua laughed as they saw the two dreadful-looking men giving each other a thumbs up. They get along well. There seems to be something in common between them. This is horrible. Those were their thoughts. The life of the palace lord couldn't have been very happy either. Seeing that the lord was also similar to their brat, they felt a kind of sympathy and compassion for the scary man. But why summon us in the morning? Ah, right. The palace lord set the bucket aside and said, The grass you were asking about. Yes. It seems that the guy I asked to help had inquired about it to the merchants, and one of them has come through with some information. Ah, that was quick. The people of Yunnan are quick and accurate. Watching the two of them laugh, the disciples sighed again. Anyone who saw the scene would think that the two of them had known each other for 20 years. Fortunately, after a while, the door opened and the merchant came in. I greet the Lord, the son of Yunnan. Get rid of all that pretentiousness. You know of the purple woodgrass. The man didn't even give the merchant time to speak. The merchant, who was already familiar with the Lord's behavior, immediately brought up the topic in question. The purple woodgrass is what it is called in the Central Plains. In Yunnan, we call it the divine spirit grass. What? His voice was loud. Did you say the divine spirit grass? Yes. You said they are here to find the divine spirit grass. The palace lord's eyes widened. The force his voice had lacked returned right away. No, what is this? Is that something amazing? Chongmyung, not liking the Lord's reaction, asked. No, it isn't amazing. Okay. Hadn't they said that it was an item that used to reach the Central Plains in the past? If it was a great item, then such a trade wouldn't have happened. But the palace lord had a troubled face. He scratched his head and said, what does this mean? Is there some problem? At Chongmyung's question, the palace lord sighed. Do things have to get this messed up? First of all, the purple woodgrass you spoke of definitely exists in Yunnan. But the palace lord shook his head. No, simply saying this wouldn't help you. Follow me. I will guide you to the place where the divine spirit grass is." The Lord jumped up from his seat. Seeing that large man move gave them trust. "Follow me." "Bucket! Bucket!" And that trust disappeared right away in no time.